Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Get Healthy Tampa Bay podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kerry Reller, and today we have an awesome special guest, Dr. Rashmi Schramm. Welcome to the podcast, and why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
It is my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Dr. Reller. So my name is Dr. Rashmi Schramm. I am a board-certified family physician. I've been practicing for a couple of decades. I'm also a certified coach and a meditation and Ayurveda teacher. I have a whole host of programs that I create and provide. And what I really do is I help busy women to really get rid of guilt and tap into their own inner peace and power so that they can live more energetic and purposeful lives. And I'm so thrilled to be here to chat about ways that we can all get healthier, particularly in this context.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm super excited to talk to you today and learn a lot. And I think that's because it's a topic that I don't know as much about. And we were going to talk about meditation and mindfulness. So why don't you go ahead and tell us where you want to start with that?
You got it. Yeah. So meditation and mindfulness, they've become kind of a hashtag and they're sort of trendy right now. And so I actually think it's a great idea just to even kind of create the definitions for those. So mindfulness, for the most part, most people would agree, is just the awareness that arises when we're paying attention to this present moment without judgment and with curiosity. And so it seems simple, and it is simple, but most of the time, the mind, as adults, we're creating lots and lots of judgments, and there's a kind of a narrative that's going on about everything that we're coming in contact with, right? And so if you look at 3 and 4-year-olds, they are already mindful. They are not judging anything. They are already in the present moment, and they're already curious. And so I point out to that and how mindful children are, not because anyone taught them to be mindful, but because that is our essential nature. Mindfulness is actually our essential nature, and it gets covered up by layers and layers and layers of stress. And meditation also has lots and lots of connotations to it, but it's also very simple. It's really just the journey from activity into stillness. And it is the formal practice of mindfulness, and it's also the fastest way to build up our mindfulness muscles. So a meditation practice can look so different for everyone. There's not one right way or one wrong way. But ultimately, any meditation practice is really about what's happening outside of the meditation practice, how deeply or how well we're living our lives outside of that practice.
Okay. So I guess mindful is like the toddler brain thing that we talk about, where they're just totally naive and happy and curious. And I love that. I did not realize that was a different definition for it. But can you tell us a little bit on the historical context of meditation and why people did it?
Yeah, sure. So one of the funniest things is when we talk about evidence-based medicine, which you and I are physicians, and so we like to talk about that a lot. I had another physician, Yogi, who said, look, at the biggest evidence you can possibly have is that this particular practice was handed down. We can trace it back to 5,000 years ago. Like, why would mankind, generation after generation, take such care to pass these traditions on if they weren't in some way hugely beneficial, right? So every ancient wisdom tradition, literally around the world, has a component of meditation. Sometimes it's woven into religiosity, and most of the time it is generally a spiritual practice, which to me is very separate than a religious practice. And it is really a way for us to slip into a way of being that gives us kind of this way to flow through life, to create effortless effort, all these different ways, right? And so there are multiple types of meditation. There's just breath meditation. There is mantra meditation. I teach a particular lineage of mantra meditation that can be traced back to 5,000 years. I also teach a kind of meditation that is just completely sleep-based. It's called Yoga Nidra. It's actually like the most popular amongst all of my students, where all you have to do, it's an invitation to come, lie down in a supremely comfortable position and follow along. And it's a fully guided meditation. And so historically, every continent has its own tradition of meditation. For me, I'm just drawn to the types of meditation that were taught in India. I'm from India. I lived there as a child. I have a lot of ties to that, and it feels like home for me. And it can be easily translated to the modern world to be able to use it in the modern world without any religious context to it whatsoever.
Yeah, I think that also helps people be more open to it because, some people think that it's got to be religious or spiritual, but I definitely think that having that approach is really important. So you mentioned a bunch of different types. Did you want to go through any like differences or anything or?
Yeah, we can certainly do that. But what I think is really interesting is to talk about why we even meditate, right? Like,
Yeah.
like
We can start
why are we
there.
having this discussion, right? Because this is the get healthy. Like, how can we get healthy? So I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about the different kind of benefits that we already know. Now there are thousands of studies that have been published on the benefits of meditation. And mind you, we've been studying meditation for a little over 25 years or so. And keep in mind, it doesn't have nearly as much funding as any big pharma drug does. So you're going to have a slow trickle of information that comes in as quote unquote evidence. But the practice itself, like we just talked about, is 5,000 years old. And so anytime I talk about the benefits in any presentation or any context like this, I say, let's keep in mind the bigger picture is that we are at the tip of the iceberg for understanding just a few of the benefits of meditation, and that there's a lot more that's deeper down in there, right? And so meditation, like we said, is a formal way to practice mindfulness. And one of the first things that happens in any meditation practice, whether you're a first-time meditator or this is your 1,000th time meditating, is we almost always move into that parasympathetic rest and restore response, because most of the time we are in some fashion or the other, simmering around in that sympathetic go, 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 that fight or flight, right? And that's really a result of chronic daily stress. And we've documented all of the untoward effects that chronic daily stress, that low level of chronic daily stress, on top of all the high levels of stress that we experience just as humans on this planet, can have a huge detrimental effect. And as a practicing physician, you see all of those things. I see all of those things, right? Increasing rates of diabetes, of obesity, of hypertension, all the chronic illnesses that we can, in fact, tie back to chronic daily stress and all of the kind of elements tied to that. So it isn't that meditation fixes all of that, but it can be a really good start to become more aware and therefore take more of that initiative, take charge of our health a little bit more. That's really what I think meditation can help with. So what meditation, when we move into that parasympathetic rest and restore response, huge numbers of things happen very quickly physiologically. And so a lot of times when I'm teaching, people will say, oh my God, my heart rate is dropping. Like they'll have all their Fitbit and things like that. They'll type in the chat or they'll say, oh my God, is this okay? My heart rate is like 46, or, my blood pressure just dropped like 30 points and it's never been this low, and all of these things. So we see that blood pressure drops, we see that heart rate drops, and it isn't because we are trying to make it happen. It is something that happens, right? And on top of that, there's a whole host of things happening, because if we think of the physiology of the sympathetic stress response, main things that happen because we have to either flight or, kind of like hide, is we have to have blood shunted from the immune system. We have to have blood shunted from the GI tract. And then there's different flow of blood as well. And so the parasympathetic response, the opposite of that, the rest and restore, really restores blood flow to the GI tract back over into the immune system. And so we start to see the immune response actually improve. We start to see better digestion. And in the brain, some pretty enormously phenomenal things start to happen. I could talk about this for 3 hours, as you can tell, but I'll just tell you the very top part of that is we start to actually see a change in blood flow right away in the brain. And so when we're in the fight or flight, we have a lot of blood flow in kind of that reptilian part of our brain, right? So the amygdala, the brain stem where we have to survive. And it is helpful. So there's nothing unhelpful about it in a short period of time, but over a long period of time, it doesn't serve us very well. We can't think creatively. So blood flow starts to change, and there's more blood flow into the prefrontal cortex. And over time, what that means is even immediately, you can see an improved, sort of access to creativity, improved access to some level of intellectual capacity, even in chaos, all of those things. And over time, the brain literally looks different in someone who meditates on a consistent basis. There is significant change in the gray matter in the prefrontal cortex, in the hippocampus. The hippocampus is important in memory storage. And there's huge changes in the areas of emotional regulation, all of those things that we start to see. We can see them physically, and it doesn't take that long. It doesn't take 10 years in a cave in the Himalayas. It takes 15 minutes on a cushion in your bedroom for a few weeks. So those are some of the reasons why we might want to think about meditation. And then you can kind of choose what types of meditation you might want.
Okay. So I always called it rest and digest, but I really like that rest and restore, obviously, for the meditation concept. But so like you mentioned, prefrontal cortex, hippocampus, those like memory, concentration on, like you said, creative thoughts can improve with that, from the blood flow to the certain parts of the brain. And that's moving away from the sympathetic response, which I usually talk to patients about how chronic stress increases cortisol. So I'm assuming with the blood flow, we're also decreasing the hormones in those, like obviously decreasing cortisol. So I've not heard it explained that way with the blood flow. So I think that is so helpful for everybody to understand what is going to happen in their body when they are practicing meditation. Okay. That
If
is
it's okay,
awesome.
you just reminded me that I forgot a key part of what I normally explain. And you're absolutely right about the cortisol levels absolutely drop very significantly. And we know that cortisol isn't all bad. We know that we need, obviously, but the long term, the one that you and I are talking about, the part that's not helpful, where we've got all kinds of issues with glucose, that definitely drops. And what's really interesting is the actual neurotransmitters within the brain, the gut brain, change very, very dramatically. So within 11 hours of meditation, so this was 3 weeks into a fairly large trial, and they've been able to replicate this. What they were able to see is a 30 to 40% increase in endogenous serotonin, in endogenous DHEA, in endogenous norepinephrine. So those are our feel-good hormones. And in that same period of time, there was a 60% increase in dopamine, and none of those things changed so long as somebody kept meditating. I mean, that is incredible, right? So there was actually a very large study that was published on election day this last time. So it didn't get any press at all, but it literally showed the same efficacy as one of the SSRIs that we normally use, escitalopram, within an 8 period for depression and anxiety. And so that's just some of the small things that we're starting to see. There's a lot under the surface there.
I would love to see that study if you can send me
I'll
the
send it
link.
to you. Yeah.
And then I'm assuming when you were talking about different parts of the brain and the blood flow, they probably did that by MRI, right?
They did functional MRI, PET scans. That's exactly right. Yep.
Okay. So, I mean, you've convinced me that it would be good for my health to meditate more, but how can someone get started?
Yeah. One of the most common things I'll hear is, I should meditate and I should find the time, or I don't have the time, right? That's really, really common. That was me. I mean, that's why I ended up joining, like years ago, a meditation teacher training, not because I thought I'd ever teach, but because I also had the same issue of starting, stopping. Like it was, life was getting in the way. And so I signed up because they said, look, if you sign up for this thing for 2 years, you have to meditate every day. This is on you. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'll do it. So that's how my streak started years ago. It wasn't like I just automatically became some, yogi overnight. No, it's still very messy. It's still like I just meditate in the car, all of those things. So, and if meditation doesn't sound like it's appealing to someone, one of the fastest ways to develop our mindfulness muscle can be just through walking outside, and that's actually what I recommend most of the time to people when they feel like their thoughts are just way too, kind of like 20 out of 10, when they've got just a lot of anxiety that they're dealing with. It might be very difficult, or it might feel like it's difficult to just sit down and either notice your breath or repeat a mantra or something like that. And so you can go outside and literally without any electronics, right? Like, so listen to the sounds that are there, look at what's in front of you, just paying attention to the cadence of your feet and noticing what you are feeling, noticing your thoughts. That is mindfulness. That is absolutely mindfulness. And if we did that 10 minutes every day, that would be a huge benefit. And so over time, you can really just kind of ease into a meditative practice. Maybe you'll choose to just sit down, turn on your phone for just 2 minutes and just sit and notice your breath. And really, that's all it takes. It doesn't take an hour and a half. Now, eventually, as you get deeper, that might be something that pulls you into it, and that's great. But ultimately, when someone comes to work with me or comes into one of my programs, they've tried an app, which I think are great too. Some apps work great for a lot of people, and they just haven't had the luck that they want. And in fact, that study that I'm going to send you that was just published showed sort of the number one predictor of people continuing their meditation practice months later was having a group and a teacher. And so that's why I offer what I offer as well, which makes sense, right? Because we're herd species. We learn from each other. Of course, we're going to listen to podcasts. We learn a huge amount in podcasts, but to keep up a certain level of progress, it's really amazing if we can find an accountability partner or a teacher or something that we can continue to work on. So I think that would be a really good way to dip your toes in without making it a chore, because then it becomes a chore and no one wants to do another chore. You've got plenty of those shoulds in your life.
Absolutely. So speaking of the apps, I do often suggest some to my patients, like doing the guided meditation on Calm or Headspace. And my husband uses, I think, Headspace. And I mean, you think those are good places to start for
I think
somebody?
they're fantastic places to start. Absolutely. Okay. There's no bad place to start with it at all. In fact, Headspace has a really good series that's just called Headspace Guide to Meditation on Netflix. So I feel like most people probably have Netflix. It is so well done. I think it's already maybe a couple of years into it, but it is really, really good. So if any of your listeners want to just pop that in, that would be a great way to get started as well. I think it's a very powerful series.
Awesome. Okay. So otherwise, you mentioned all the different like techniques, and one of the words, I don't even know what it was. So could you talk about that? I don't know which it was.
Absolutely. So I'll tell you about the two that I teach because I know a lot about those. And then I know a little bit about some of the others, right? So I teach a mantra-based meditation. Sometimes we'll call it mantra. Mantra in Sanskrit, it's a Sanskrit word, is very simple. It just means mind vehicle or mind ladder. So what we do is we literally give the monkey mind something to do while we slip past the mind. So that's one type of meditation. Mm-hmm. The other is called Yoga Nidra or NSDR, which is non-sleep deep rest. And when we practice those, it's fully guided. And so what we see is we slip directly into sleep states. And, if we had an EEG and the next, Nidra, and actually just did one for my group last night. And so what would happen is we could move from the state that you and I are in right now, or maybe who's listening, which is kind of this beta. It's a little bit of, which is fine, but we slip directly into that alpha wave, which is sort of that like very restful kind of like, you just feel really calm right before you're about to fall asleep. And that is an incredibly physiologically helpful state to be in, not just for the brain, but also for the body. And then what we see very regularly in people who are practicing a Nidra is we see people slip into theta, delta, like deep sleep and REM, but they can come out and tell you exactly what's happened through the whole meditation. And it is one of the most super cool, fun things that we can really try. And each of those is transcendental in that they're not trying to make you fly or anything, but it is a way for us to recognize the limitations of the thinking mind, the limitations of logic, and that when we can slip past that and just be, that we can come back and bring some of that magic back with us.
I mean, I was going to say, can you show us an example without making me fall asleep? Because when I have tried it, I usually just pass out.
No, for sure. And, that was me too. And what we say is there are 4 very valid experiences during a meditation. We think that we have to feel a certain way all the time, right? So it's perfectly normal to be following the guidance, right? So that's a normal, valid experience. It is a valid experience to have a lot of thoughts and feel irritable. That is a valid experience. It's that you are aware that you are having a lot of thoughts. That's hugely helpful. You can fall asleep, and that is a valid experience. In fact, it's one of the most common things that happens during a meditation. And it is one of the first things that we say is, try not to fall asleep. But if you do, that's okay. Right. And so when the body needs rest, when we are chronically in need of a little bit of rest, we will fall asleep. And that is great. That is okay. In fact, a lot of my students use the Nidras to help them fall asleep at night, whether it's at first or when they wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning. They'll just pop, a Nidra in and they'll get like 6 minutes through a 25-minute meditation and they've had the best sleep of their lives, So, and then the other one is just that we have kind of this very blissful experience. So that's the fourth experience, kind of this, what we normally think of as a meditation experience. And of course, the mind immediately goes to, well, that's the only experience I can have during a meditation. If I don't have that experience, well, then my meditation sucked, or I don't know how to do it, or I can't meditate, or I'm doing it wrong, or something like that, right? Those are all thoughts. And they're valid thoughts, but they're not real. They're just thoughts. So if you do fall asleep, great. It was a valid experience. You still got something out of it.
Okay. Just making sure. I mean, a lot of people, I think they get discouraged because they're trying to relax and focus, but their mind constantly is wandering and they think it wasn't a success, right? But I think, like you're probably going to say, that's the whole point of it, right? Bringing yourself back into the moment and realizing.
You are so right on this. And it's literally just the act of saying, I'm going to meditate for 3 minutes today, setting your timer on 3 minutes, and then sitting down and meditating for 3 minutes, whatever that looks like for you. So if that might be just closing the eyes and noticing your breath, that's actually one of the most powerful things we can do. Closing your eyes and noticing your thoughts for 3 minutes without getting caught up in our thoughts, coming back to, if you do a mantra, that's really what's helpful. And when the timer goes off, not needing to judge the meditation, right? Because what is mindfulness? Meditation is mindfulness. Mindfulness is non-judgment. So it can become a beautiful way to practice self-compassion. In fact, I think it's one of the most powerful ways to practice self-compassion is giving ourselves permission to do things messy and giving ourselves permission to return back to whatever it was, whatever path that we choose that's right for ourselves.
I was going to ask you, but I think you already touched on it. It was basically, how often should one do that? Do meditation, and how long, or what did you want to comment on that?
I do. Yeah. So there's lots of studies on this and lots of different thoughts on this as well. Generally speaking, meditation, just like exercise, just like eating well, is that consistency is better than intensity. So if you can meditate every day for 2 minutes, and in fact, we do like a breath meditation in my program for just literally 2 minutes a day. Most people can find 2 minutes or 90 seconds a day. And so if we can do that consistently on a daily basis for 2 minutes a day, the benefits add up way more than if we did, 45 minutes on Saturday and 45 minutes on Sunday, for example. And so it doesn't have to be hugely long, but so long as you can do it on most days or every day, you're going to start to see these benefits that we were just talking about.
Yeah, I definitely like the comparison to exercise and nutrition, because those are easier things for, I think, some people that are my patients to relate to. Like, they don't have to do an hour workout at that moment, but even little bits throughout the day of getting up and walking around can all accumulate and give you results. So kind of the same thing. It's a great, great analogy. So where should we go from here? Do you want to do an example?
We can easily do a meditation either now, or you and I can record one later. So that way, if somebody's driving, they don't feel like they have to totally up to you. But really, I think just trying a meditation would be helpful. I'm going to let you decide.
Let's do it now. I mean, they can always pause and pull over.
Yeah. So pause and pull over. Don't do this if you're driving. So let's do this. So let's go ahead and get comfy. And usually, really, you just need two things. You just need to sit down and close your eyes. So if closing your eyes doesn't feel comfortable, you can just have a soft downward gaze. And let's just begin by taking a couple of these deeper breaths and letting out an audible sigh. Just letting go of what's not serving you. Noticing if there are expectations and allowing those to be gently released. And then just gently putting your attention on your breath. Not trying to alter the breath, not controlling it. Just noticing the in-breath, the out-breath. Just giving yourself permission to just be right here in this moment. Just softly turning towards the thoughts that might be coming through, allowing them to come and go. Just gently returning back to the breath. Noticing that the breath is always with us. Connection from the body to the mind. From the moment we're born to our very last breath. With your attention at the level of your heart, let's ask ourselves, what am I grateful for? What are the many blessings in my life? Just allowing any images or thoughts to float up without the need to judge or analyze. Still keeping the eyes closed, just gently releasing the question and the answers. And let's begin silently repeating the following mantra. And the mantra is so hum. Silently repeating so on the in-breath, hum on the out-breath. So, not forcing, just gently following. So, when you find that your mind has wandered, you've done nothing wrong, just gently and silently returning back to the mantra. Keeping the eyes closed, gently releasing the mantra and just resting. Just resting in here, this moment. Now taking a couple of deeper breaths, returning back to the body, back to the room, perhaps wiggling the toes and the fingers. Just noticing what there is to be noticed in the body, in the shoulders and the neck. And just bringing in a deep sense of gratitude as we finish this meditation for yourself, for your higher self, for giving yourself permission for this practice in your busy life. Taking another deep breath or two, you can just gently open your eyes as you're ready. And there we have it.
Wow. I don't know if anybody's ever felt dizzy, but I felt dizzy. I don't know if it was my hair weighing me down, but I think the mantra was really helpful. I don't think I've ever done that before. And it really helped me like kind of focus back in,
Yeah.
which I think is needed with my thoughts going crazy. So I think that is definitely a new technique that I've learned today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can literally just sit down and practice that. And it's really,
Mhm.
really powerful.
Mhm. I like that. All right. Yeah, like I said, I'm sold on the science part of it, which is obviously exciting for me as a nerd, but the benefits that can happen is awesome. I think as you said, a little bit at a time can be beneficial, and to just kind of implement it in your morning routine or evening routine. I think for me, I think it's something I would have to move to the morning so I don't just fall asleep.
Yep. Yep. Same, same.
Yeah. So is there anything else you want to share with the audience or anything?
I'd love to connect if there's an interest in this. I have
Mhm.
lots of free videos on my YouTube channel. So you would just go to YouTube and type in my name, Dr. Rashmi Schramm. I've got lots and lots of evidence-based meditations that are completely free. I, from time to time, also have very beginner types of guided meditations that people can come in. And we know that there's huge growth that happens when there's a guided kind of group like that that's live and on demand. So you can sign up for those on my website, which is also just my name, RashmiSchramm.com. I'm also on Instagram, all the same handles. So you can find me on those, and Facebook as well.
Awesome. Well, we will definitely include that in the show notes. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. And I hope everybody will tune in next week for what we have.
Yeah,
Thank
it's been my
you.
pleasure. Thank you.